Please note, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders should be made aware that the following episode may contain information and images of deceased persons. Christen Fogarty was born on the 3rd of October 1979 at King Edward Memorial Hospital in Subiaco, Western Australia, to parents Philip Harold Fogarty and Marlene Baby Shar. Following his birth, the couple split, and as a result, Kristen was generally known by his mother's surname, often referred to as Christen Lee Shar, during much of his life. By 2002, the 22-year-old was residing in a Western Desert community house located at 29 Colorless Street in Newman, Pilbara region. At the time, he was living with his mother, Marlene, sister Roxanne and her daughter, another sister and 4 brothers. The family had only recently moved to Newman, having previously lived in Mount Magnet and the Yulgajina Aboriginal community near Meekatharra, areas which Kristen was very familiar with. According to his mother, Kristen had an undiagnosed mental disability with the cognitive capacity equivalent to that of a 12-year-old. He had minimal formal education and could not read or write. Whilst he struggled to solve problems independently, Kristen was capable of retaining information if it was demonstrated to him first. Marlene described her son as a generally happy individual who had a good relationship with his family, though he was notably shy, especially in social situations. Despite this, Kristen was capable of managing basic camping and bush survival skills. He'd been taught how to locate waterholes and follow sheep trails. Though he often was dependent on others, he could manage certain situations independently for a short period of time. Despite having basic camp and bushcraft skills, when his family went away on camping trips, which they often did, Kristen often chose to remain at home, where he felt safe and could look after himself. The 22-year-old struggled emotionally when faced with uncertainty, often withdrawing himself and becoming despondent. Due to his crippling shyness, Kristen preferred staying at home rather than engaging socially, though he was genuinely content when around his family. According to both his mother and sister Roxanne, he was highly sensitive to conflict. He tended to internalise family difficulties as personal criticism, which could lead to him running away. This behaviour was evident during an incident in Mount Magnet when he was around 15 or 16 years of age. After unintentionally causing injury to his younger brother, he fled the family home and was later found hiding in a nearby vacant house. Approximately 1 month prior to his disappearance, in July of 2002, Kristen had been adjusting well to his new environment in Newman, even accompanying the family on outings to local shops. However, following an incident involving inappropriate sexual advances from his cousin who was visiting, he became noticeably withdrawn. Roxanne, his sister, reported the inappropriate behaviour to their mother, who then asked their niece to leave the house. The 22-year-old later confided that such behaviour had been occurring for several years, including during their time at the Yulgajina community near Meekatharra. The family recalled that he had previously isolated himself at the community's rubbish tip, possibly in response to similar emotional distress. After the cousin's departure, known only by the name of Yasmin in the coroner's report, Kristen appeared deeply distressed and upset and blamed himself for the situation that had unfolded. He asked his mother for some money, and when she was unable to provide him with any, he left the house and did not return for dinner. The family searched for him unsuccessfully and reported his absence to the Newman police. Commander Brad Sorrell later located Fogarty walking along the highway and noted signs of his disability. When returned home by the police, Kristen told his mother he believed the incident was his fault and became visibly emotional. This was, according to Marlene, the very first time that she had ever seen her son cry. It's interesting to note that Kristen told his younger brother Raymond, following the incident, that he, quote, wished to go somewhere he could not be found. On July the 24th of 2002, the Fogarty Shar family departed Newman with plans to travel to Meekatharra and then continue on to Mount Magnet. Although Marlene repeatedly encouraged her son to join them, Kristen insisted on staying behind, as he often did during previous trips. Eventually, his mother agreed that he could stay home. At the time of their departure, Marlene noted that Kristen appeared slightly more content than he had been in previous weeks, following the incident with his cousin. Her plan was to leave late on the Wednesday night, collect some belongings from the Yulgajina community, and return home via Mount Magnet by Sunday the 28th of July. The family departed at around 11:30 p.m. on July 24th. Marlene last saw her son standing outside the front door of their home as the rest of the family drove away in their Toyota. What happened following their departure remains shrouded in mystery. On Friday the 26th of July, Marlene asked a neighbour to check in on Kristen at the house. However, when she called the neighbour the following day, she stated that the house was all locked up and nobody appeared to be home. On Monday the 29th of July, a niece went to the house again, but once again, it was all locked up. According to the niece, it was of her belief that Kristen had not been home for quite some time. Whilst at the residence, the niece fed the two family dogs that were kept out back. She believed Kristen had perhaps just got out of bed and left the residence, on most likely the morning of the 25th, when she went to feed the dogs. Marlene called a third neighbour to check in at the house, but were met with the same response. It was then that Kristen was reported missing to the Mount Magnet police by his mother. According to the coroner's inquest report, Sergeant Wilden of Mount Magnet Police said in the missing persons report that Marlene stated that her son was, quote, stressed out over family incident and blaming himself. Not a major incident, but due to mental illness, feelings are heightened over minor incidents. Police visited the residence on Caldora Street, but only found the two dogs in the backyard, which had been taken care of by Marlene's niece when she had stopped by. Extensive inquiries were made by Mount Magnet and Newman Police, even in Meekatharra in case Kristen had returned there, but sadly no trace of the 22-year-old could be found. The coroner later praised the running sheet, which recorded every step of their missing persons investigation with fine detail and comprehensiveness, though the fact the search for Kristen began around 5 days after he was last seen almost certainly hindered initial efforts to find him. The last confirmed sighting of Kristen was late on the night of July 24th, 2002, at the family home. Authorities searched the home to see if Kristen had perhaps taken anything with him, if he had chosen to venture out. However, nothing appeared to have been taken. On July 30th, his mother requested a land search to be conducted. However, as authorities had no parameter to search other than the immediate vicinity of the family home itself, a comprehensive search of the land would not be possible. Despite some setbacks, Marlene continued to be proactive in the search for her son and engaged with local Aboriginal trackers in the hopes they could assist in locating him. She was advised to remain in contact with Newman police and to report any new information which could help define search parameters. Police efforts continued, focusing on areas Marlene had identified as places Kristen was likely to visit. By this stage, it was believed that Kristen may have taken his mountain bike with him, as it was notably missing from the residence. On the afternoon of Wednesday, the 31st of July 2002, Commander Sorrell, a qualified land search and rescue coordinator, worked in coordination with the Newman State Emergency Services to establish appropriate boundaries for the search area. Publicity surrounding Kristen's disappearance prompted police to revisit a report from the Capricorn Roadhouse. On the afternoon of the 25th of July, the day after Kristen was last seen, a person on a bicycle had been seen north of the Nullagine turnoff. When questioned by a woman who asked why he was there, the individual stated he was, quote, just going for a ride. Although the man was not recognised by those who saw him, police considered it plausible that the cyclist may have been Kristen. Additional information was received from a separate source indicating that a BHP rail coordinator had seen an Aboriginal man riding a bicycle along Marble Bar Road near the rail crossing at Jimble Bar Junction. While the exact time and details of the sighting were unclear, only that it occurred one morning the previous week, it was considered relevant to the ongoing search. Commander Sorrell acknowledged that Kristen may have felt unwelcome or ostracised in Newman due to his disability, and had perhaps wanted to return to Meekatharra or Mount Magnet, where he felt comfortable, safe and familiar, but affirmed the sincerity of the search efforts made by police and local communities. Despite these efforts, no trace of Kristen was found. On Thursday, the 1st of August 2002, the search parameters were extended and refined. The search effort was comprehensive and involved a wide range of participants, including SES volunteers, police officers, members of the Enduro Club on motorbikes, Qantas personnel operating an ultralight aircraft, local pilots conducting aerial surveillance, and Shire Rangers assisting with communications. The police team also included experienced Aboriginal trackers and respected elders from local Aboriginal communities, contributing valuable knowledge of the terrain. Despite extensive media coverage and the coordinated search efforts, no confirmed sightings of Christen Fogarty were reported. On the afternoon of August the 1st, SES volunteers discovered bicycle tracks near the Jigalong turnoff. The tracks were traced to an abandoned car wreck near a fire site, suggesting someone may have camped there overnight. Various items were collected from the area and brought back to Newman, but Kristen's sister did not believe any of the belongings were her brother's. The following day, trackers continued to follow the bicycle trail and found evidence suggesting a Holden-type vehicle had intersected with the tracks. The trackers concluded that the individual with the bicycle had likely been picked up in this vehicle, as the tracks ceased beyond that point. There was no indication of force or violence at the scene. However, it remained unconfirmed whether the individual observed riding the bicycle or tracked from the campsite was indeed Kristen. In March of 2003, Marlene Shar provided police with a DNA sample to assist with identification in the event that her son's remains were discovered. However, at the time, there was no evidence to indicate whether Kristen was alive or deceased. His bank account has remained untouched ever since. A number of skeletal remains have been found over the years which were initially believed could have belonged to Kristen. However, one set were identified as female and the others were deemed highly unlikely to be him due to the location being extremely far away from where he was last seen. No dental or medical records are available to assist in this particular case, only DNA from Kristen's mother, which could be used for comparison. Sadly, the coroner's inquest into Kristen's disappearance in 2020 concluded that he was most likely deceased, despite being unable to determine cause of death. Due to his disabilities, even if he had chosen to venture off alone or with a stranger, it was deemed highly unlikely that he would have been able to fend for himself for a prolonged period of time. The coroner stated in her report, quote, "The possibilities as to what happened to Mr. Fogarty are endless. While not being able to determine a manner and cause for his death, I am satisfied he is deceased. I make an open finding into the death of Mr. Fogarty." Perth coroner Evelyn Vicker concluded in her 2020 report, quote, "There is no doubt that despite Mr. Fogarty's difficulties, he was well loved by his family. There was no indication anyone wished him harm, although his disability may have drawn a lack of empathy in some of those coming across him. If it was Mr. Fogarty on the bicycle, it seems entirely likely he voluntarily went with whoever collected him, but there is no clear information around that possibility. He did not reappear. A young man with the disposition of a 12-year-old was very vulnerable and would undoubtedly have attracted attention had he reappeared in the wider community. His mother and stepfather continued searching for him for many years, but died without hearing anything to suggest he could still be alive." At the time of his disappearance in July of 2002, Christen Lee Fogarty, or Shar, was 22 years old. He is described as an Aboriginal male with short, dark brown wavy hair and brown eyes, standing at 180 centimetres tall and weighing approximately 95 kilograms. Unfortunately, it's unknown what he was wearing on the day he vanished, or if he had anything in his possession at the time. Sadly, due to very little clues to work with, this disappearance remains unsolved. Though Kristen was legally declared deceased by the coroner, lingering questions still remain. What happened to him? Where did he go that day? And ultimately, what fate befell the 22-year-old?